Hey guys, it's ExandShadow, and welcome back to Let's Play Banjo-Tooie. In the last part, we got up to the top of the mountain, and in this part, we're facing off with the boss of Pterodactyl Land, Terry, him, or herself. They're kind of vague on this. You know, Terry's a gender-neutral name for most people, and, well, you know, it's, they call him the pterodactyl parent, and, you know, not pterodactyl father or mother or whatever. But I'm just gonna call him a him because that's what I've always thought Terry was. I've always thought he was a dude, and so a dude he shall always be in my eyes. And, more dino loogies. Really? I thought we were done with this crap. Ugh. Anyway, Terry is quite honestly one of the easiest bosses in the game. Really only beaten out by Old King Cole in easiness. So, you know, he's kind of out of place being past the halfway point in the game, but you know what? Whatever. I'll take a break when I can get it. Anyway, Terry basically has two phases that he cycles between throughout the entire fight. You've got the first phase that we saw before, and that's coming up right now, and the second phase that we just passed. The first phase is really simple. He's going to shoot purple loogies at you. Now, the thing that you need to keep in mind to dodging these things is that he does actually track your position, and he's trying to shoot where you're about to be. So if you're heading straight up, he's going to shoot farther up than you are at the moment, so if you keep on holding the control stick in that direction, you'll run into his shot. So basically, the key to dodging those is to basically just move around a whole lot and try not to be heading in the same direction for too long. After you get a couple of shots in, he'll, after you dodge a couple of shots, he'll start moving around to get a better vantage point, and that's your chance to shoot some grenade eggs at him. You can use whatever you want, but I just like grenade eggs best because they do the most damage. Then, in his second phase, he'll shoot out sentient loogies, yuck, and they'll start to attack you, but they can be taken out really quickly with just a simple roll attack. I wouldn't recommend wasting eggs on them, though, because you're either going to try to cycle through your less useful eggs, like the blue ones, or you're going to have to risk using your grenade eggs, which will explode in your face at that point, because they're usually at pretty close range, so you're going to want to, you know, just stick to your standard roll. That can take out like 2 or 3 of them at once if you get a good enough shot. So, you know, that's just the best way to deal with those. Terry, I took a couple of cheap hits from him, but he's never a boss that you should die to. He's really rather easy, and I honestly think that he should have been, or his pattern, I should say, should have been put somewhere earlier in the game, because he's a pretty pathetic boss, if I do say so myself. Anyway, beating him, however, is one of the most important missions you can do in Pterodactyl Land, and that's why I recommend going after it relatively early. Not necessarily the first thing you should do, but, you know, you should take care of it sooner rather than later, because he unlocks 1, 2, 3 jiggies for you. The first jiggy is the jiggy you get just by beating him, the boss jiggy. The second jiggy is his eggs mission, which can only be accessed after you beat him. The eggs, you might have seen them while I was walking around before, but they've been this gray color. You can't hatch them until they become blue and red, and they don't become blue and red until after you beat, the boss. So you're going to want to take care of Terry so that you can get that mission done too. And also, if you beat Terry, you can also access this jiggy underneath his nest by using the bill drill. And that's a really easy one. We got that jiggy within like 10 seconds. So yeah, you're going to want to take care of Terry relatively early so you can get all of those jiggies. He's a pretty important boss to fight. You could ignore Target Zan if you want to, or you could ignore Lord Wufak. In fact, you really shouldn't ignore Terry, just because he's such an important boss. Not too many bosses help you unlock other things later in the level. Terry's one of the bosses that does do that, so you're going to want to take care of him as soon as possible. Anyway, the bridge that we're on right now, this bridge, the one with these obnoxious pterodactyls over it, this leads to the stomping plains, and you're not going to want to fall off like that because it's basically instant death if you do. Yeah, not very smart. I think maybe if you have max honeycombs by this point in the game, you might survive that fall, but yeah, just try not to. Falling is bad, okay? yeah. So we're just going to cut back to when I actually start doing things again, and that's in Wumba's Wigwam. Remember that if you want to make the wigwam big like this, you're going to need to use Mumbo, and depending on the size of the wigwam, you get a different transformation. So if you go into Wumba's big wigwam in Pterodactyl Land, you become a motherfucking T-Rex. Yep, you become the Daddy T-Rex, and it is awesome. This is, without a doubt, the most badass transformation in the entire game. You want to know why? That's why. Listen to that roar and that swagger as he walks around and that jumping. Just, you're a T-Rex. This is the most awesome thing ever. You know, back when I was a kid, I loved the shit out of dinosaurs. What 10-year-old doesn't love the shit out of dinosaurs? And just being able to walk around as this lumbering, awesome T-Rex is just one of the most amazing things in gaming. You need to play more games where you actually control dinosaurs, because I can't think of too many off the top of my head. You know, the sorry thing about the Daddy T-Rex, though, is that there's really only two things that you can do with them. The first is roaring to scare this caveman dude, which is very context sensitive, and is kind of hard to figure out the correct spot to do, because sometimes he just doesn't want to hear your gigantic ear-shattering roar. But you're going to need to roar as the Daddy T-Rex to get this Unga Bunga dude to stop guarding the Oogle Boogle cave. So yeah, you're going to need to do that if you want to. That's the only way to scare him off from there. So now that we've done that, we've unlocked access to the Oogle Boogle cave, which you know is nice. And also, I probably shouldn't be able to stand on that, but whatever. I love coding. Anyway, the second thing we need to do is actually right next to Wumba's Wigwam, so that's why I took this little shortcut here. You see that Daddy T-Rex switch? You need to step on it in order to open up the cage that opens up that Jinjo right there. And then we've got a little bit of a time segment here where we need to get the Daddy T-Rex into the Wumba pool, and then we need to get Banjo and Kazooie out of the Banjo-Kazooie back into that little cave there. If we run out of time, we gotta start the whole thing over again, which you know is a pain in the ass. But even though you only use it for like a total of maybe 2 minutes, it's still one of the most fun transformations to play in the entire game, because, you know, you're a T-Rex. There's very few instances in games where you really feel as full of power as in that section, because when you're the T-Rex, you're basically invincible. You can walk through enemies. You've got that giant badass roar. It's just a massive power trip. And even if you can only do like 2 things with it and you're only using it for like 2 seconds, it's still one of the most satisfying things in the game, and it's a really memorable set piece for what it is. So anyway, the next time you decide to use Mumbo, you're going to want to have him shrink down that Wumba Tet, because basically, once you use the Daddy T-Rex once, you're done with him. But however, that one global we used does actually power the smaller transformation, so you're going to want to get that thing small so you can get the other stuff done with the smaller transformation, as I'm doing right now. I cut out going back to Mumbo because, you know how this whole thing works. You know me going to Mumbo, switching command and stuff. But yeah, you're going to want to shrink down the tent pretty much as soon as you're done using the Daddy T-Rex, because, well, you're going to need to use the small dinosaur. I'm spoiling it, but going into Wumba's tent when you're small makes you into a smaller T-Rex, which you can do a couple more things with than just the Daddy T-Rex. But basically, when you're off using Mumbo for other errands, go and shrink that tent down when you get the chance. But yeah, now we're taking Mumbo back into the, whatever it's called family, the dinosaur family's house, because there are a few things that we need to, well, by a few I mean one thing that we actually need to use Mumbo for in there, and that's healing the sick child. Well, no, actually it's not healing the sick child. Mumbo does that in a different area. I'm sorry. What we're doing right now is we're getting the small child to enlarge himself. And remember, though, before you make him big again, that you actually do need to have Banjo and Kazooie blow up a rock before you can access this Mumbo pad here. If you come in here with just Mumbo, you won't really be able to do a whole lot because there's no pad. But once you get the pad open like that, you can enlarge the small child, and then that's another one of the dinosaur family's kids fixed. And that's 2 out of 3 if I remember correctly. You can go after these kids in basically whatever order you want. If you want to make the small kid big first, go right ahead. If you want to get the Witchy World kid first done, you go right ahead. I would recommend saving the sick dinosaur for last, though, because the sick dinosaur is probably the most time-consuming and elaborate transformation of the bunch, so you're going to want to take care of that right away. And yeah, look at that fancy editing. It's at this point in the game where we're starting to do more and more backtracking, so I'm just going to start cutting out the, you know, the pointless stuff you've already seen before a little bit more from now on. But basically, now that we have the taxi pack ability, we can pick up this this sick dinosaur child and stuff him into our backpack. That's basically how it works for every other thing that needed a taxi pack for the rest of the game. I don't know how Banjo stuffed TARDIS technology into his backpack, but he did, and that's pretty cool, I guess. So yeah, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the sick dinosaur to Chuffy. They mentioned something about a witch doctor on the cliff top, which, as you guys all know, is a location in the Isle of Hags. But the only way to get to the cliff top, normally, well, I should say, the only way to take stuff from one level to another level, like stuff that belongs in Pterodactyl Land stays in Pterodactyl Land. You can't take it out the front entrance. The only thing that breaks that rule is Chuffy. You can take stuff and drop it into Chuffy as much as you want, and that works as opposed to just taking it out the front door. I don't know why we can't just take Banjo out the front door with the dinosaur, but we can't. So yeah, basically just walk into Chuffy's wagon, make sure that you're somewhat in the middle just so you don't get any context-sensitive mishap coding stuff, and then drop the sick dinosaur in there. You could go all the way back in order to pick up Kazooie and then walk all the way back to the train station, but there's a swap cloud right here if you need it, and then you can just take Kazooie and walk her back over to the train station for, you know, just a shorter experience. This is one of the, I don't want to say one of the first real puzzles we're using with Chuffy, but it's definitely one of the more elaborate uses of Chuffy in the game, and we're going to be getting more and more of these as we play through. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, I guess. I really do love the stuff that you do with Chuffy, though, because it really does make you think more of the game world as a whole and less as this specific level. You know, there's no way to get that dinosaur to feel better in Pterodactyl Land. So, you know, normally in another game you just think that you're stuck. But in Banjo-Tooie, you really have to think about the world as a whole as opposed to just this one individual piece of it. And not a lot of games make you do stuff like that. You know, in most games, if there's a problem, the solution to that problem is in the general area that you found it, or it's a long-reaching quest that takes hours and hours of time, you know, like in a general... Like, one example I can think of is Final Fantasy IV, where in order to get Rosa to feel better from, like, the sand sickness or whatever it's called, you need to go through, like 3 or 4 dungeons in order to get this pearl thingy from an antlion. You know, that's usually, that's like the extreme version of that. In most other situations, you know, the solution to your problem is within the level, or it's like a long-reaching goal. In this case, you know, it's a shorter range problem, but it's something that takes advantage of the world at large, which I really love that sort of open world game design in that sort of way. It's not just like you get the ice beam and you can suddenly solve a problem in like another world 3 levels over that you wouldn't think of to begin with. No, this is something logical that you have to use your brain for, you know, because you don't know what you're supposed to use that mumbo pad for when you first come to a cliff top. But, you know, you get some hints from the people in the game, you know, you realize, wait, you can stuff stuff into the train. And yeah, I love that sort of game design. I wish that more games would do stuff like that. Okay, maybe not necessarily more games should do stuff like that, but I wish that games didn't contain themselves and make themselves feel small in that way, because a lot of games purposefully make the solutions to stuff in the level that you find them, and I can understand that approach to game design, because, you know, you want to have the solution be readily available to the player. But I do wish that occasionally game developers would increase the scope of their games in such a way like this, so that, you know, you can just have sort of a bigger experience, I think. I'm not making any sense at this point, I don't think. Anyway, something game-related that I could talk about. That little altar thing that we saw there for the Hailfire Peaks, that's what that level's called right there. That's the entrance to Hailfire Peaks. If you just haven't been going straight back to Jiggy Wiggy's temple every once in a while, and you discover that and you discover a new world, if you examine the like yellow altar sort of thing, and you have enough Jiggies to unlock that level, you can warp yourself to Jiggy Wiggy's temple immediately and unlock that level with the jigsaw thing. So, you know, I think that's actually kind of a cool feature that they added into the game, because, you know, sometimes when you unlock a new level, it's just like, here's the new level. You need, like, that's a problem I had with Banjo-Kazooie 1. It's just like, you unlock the entrance to Rusty Bucket Bay. Great, but you can't go in even if you have enough Jiggies, because you have to find that painting that you need to put the jigsaw into, which is like half on the complete other side of Gruntilda's lair. You know, the game makes it super convenient to backtrack, so I don't know why people bitch so much about the backtracking aspects of Tooie, when the game really does make it a non-issue in a way, you know? Like, part of the problem that people might have with sort of the open world's ideas that I love so much in this game, you know, just as a general concept, is that if you have to use the entire world for puzzles, that makes traveling across the world, you know, just dead time, dead backtracking time where nothing happens. Just, you know, for the sake of a puzzle where it's just like, you need the thing in the other town to solve something in this town, you know? But I don't think that, I think that games can work around that in an easy way. Like, stuff like the warp pads, or even, Xenoblade, I think, did something, did a good job with that by allowing you to warp pretty much anywhere in the game you've already been before. You know, games can work their way around stuff like that. You know, you can cut out the bullshit backtracking time really easily. So, you know, we have the technology to make games have a bigger scope, so I think that we should take advantage of that scope, is basically just what I'm trying to say. But yeah, basically, I'm rambling at this point. So basically, just what you need to do in order to solve this puzzle is just put the sick dinosaur onto the train, take Mumbo, heal him, and then you also have to take Chuffy back to Pterodactyl Land in order to get the kid to come off of the cargo cart. Once you do that, everybody's back to normal, everything's hunky-dory, and you finally get your Jiggy from the dinosaur mom. Just remember, you don't have to worry about, like, backtracking back to her house, though. If you're not in the room when you're, like, if you're not, like, how do I say this? If you do anything, if you do one of the missions that involves Chuffy for her, like, if you bring back the sick kid or the missing kid last, and that's the one that triggers the Jiggy get, the Jiggy will just appear in your inventory. It's only if you save the making the small kid large for last that you'll have to actually pick it up, but in that case you're just in the room anyway, so it's no big deal. The game does, you know, sort of cut out most of the backtracking for you, which is something that I really do appreciate. You know, you can just, once you appear in the train station after this cutscene, which will be ending any second now, I swear. Now the game's loading. See, here we go. This cutscene's going to show, and the sick kid's going to run all the way home because he's feeling so much better. And after you do that, the dinosaur mom's going to talk to you and just give you the Jiggy. I don't know how she telekinesis it into your inventory, but you know what? Good. I don't care. You know, less backtracking for me is a good thing. So yeah, that's the Dinosaur Family side quest. I think I do really like it. You know, it's a little bit too much work for just one Jiggy. I think, you know, I don't necessarily think you should have gotten one Jiggy for each individual task, because most of them are a little bit too simple to give you a Jiggy. Like, you know, just using a Mumbo pad for a free Jiggy is, you know, a little bit too much to ask. But, you know, I feel like some of these tasks should have been split up, and so you might have gotten 2 Jiggies, you know, from this entire thing. Maybe cut out that Jiggy that you just get from drilling into Terry's nest or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, next time we'll explore more of Pterodactyl Land and stuff. I think... Wait, what am I doing right now? Oh, I'm just looking at the totals. Okay. I'm ExandShadow, and I'll see you guys later.